Good morning. Welcome to your week 6 post for strategic management. And this will be our final official post for this class as we come into our final week and wrap things up. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about chapter 11 and 12. I will just do this in one post today because I think it'll be manageable in one. First off, I would note that this week you do not have any discussion boards that are due. I did away with the discussion board for this week since you have your final paper, and go over that here in just a minute. So you won't have any discussions to do for this week. As far as your final paper and assignment, it's a little bit longer paper, 5 to 10 pages, dealing with any topical area that's been covered in this course over the 12 chapters and reading material. So 5 to 10 pages. I'll expect a minimum of 10 sources or references to be provided for this paper. And also, I'd like for you to tie it in, discuss the relevance of how business or other types of organizational units will have to position themselves as part of our new post-pandemic landscape. And so for an example I've got in there, you might talk about how you might design physical structures moving forward, what types of businesses might thrive, and what types might suffer as a result of the new conditions and new environments. So there is really a whole wide range of topics that you can cover and you can work with. If you've got anything that you think is a little bit on the fringes, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to give you an up or down on it. I'm usually pretty flexible as long as it's something that pertains to strategy in general, which most things do. I'm pretty easy to get along with. Again, the APA writing format is required for this as well. Okay. All right. Wanted to talk about a few things on chapter 11 and 12 today. Chapter 11 is on corporate performance, governance, and business ethics. One of the interesting things about business in general, and you can really get into some darned if you do, darned if you don't scenarios and situations, but as strategy and ethics converge, it gets much more complicated and much more dicey, especially as ethics and what is right and what is wrong isn't necessarily static. It changes over time. And there's probably no better example of that than what we're dealing with currently. Our ethical environment has changed a lot. Who would have ever thought that you would have skirmishes and brawls erupt over whether somebody is wearing a face mask into a business or in a business? Who would have thought that businesses would have had to eventually become the referee of such things? You've seen the Black Lives Matter movement. You've seen a lot of social and cultural movements that have come to the forefront and really pushed business to the forefront in terms of taking stands and making decisions on where they are going to position themselves on the continuum of many of these things. A great example right now is you watch sporting leagues like the NBA have taken a very definitive stand on the Black Lives Matter movement. There are others, baseball, hockey, different ones that tend to be sending different messages. So each of these organizations and businesses and industries are going to have to deal with the repercussions and whatever those forms might take. And there'll be positives and there'll be negatives, but it's bringing businesses increasingly into the mix, and they're having to kind of deal with those kind of challenges. The other interesting thing about business and ethics and strategy is the pressures that are particularly Western and particularly even more United States economic system, which is based very much on short-term quarterly goals. And if you've known people who work in large public organizations, folks in our spirit cohort will be very familiar with this, is there is simply no doubt that sometimes to get long-term objectives met, you have to take care of the short term. And sometimes you have to do things in the short term that may not necessarily make as much sense when you're looking at the longer term scope. But many times business executives and managers are put into a situation where they literally feel like they have to live to fight another day. And it can put tremendous pressures on them and put tremendous pressures on their strategies to move in certain directions based on those demands and based on those pressures. Another area that this chapter talks about is corporate governance. And an area that I'd like to talk about specifically, which the book handles as well, is boards of directors. If you look back even 20 years ago, 30, 40 for sure, being on a board of directors, especially a large public company, was kind of a capstone in many business executives' lives. It was a very prestigious, a very cushy position, something that they could kind of use to pass their CEO careers, that they could use to kind of supplement their income and kind of coast off into the sunset in the business world. Well, in the last 10 to 20 years, particularly, that has changed dramatically. There are a lot more activist boards of directors. There are a lot more pressures from several different stakeholders on boards of directors. And being on a board today is much, much different. It takes a lot more time. The pay is probably greater. And the companies themselves take out insurance policies on each board member. It's called director's insurance. And it hopefully is able to shield board members from the liabilities that might flow from their service on that company's board. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my company, Straub International. Before we sold it, we had a board of directors, and we had one for probably about 20 years. And especially in the last 10 to 15 years, it was a very formal, very professional, very active board of directors. Our board consisted of 9 people. We're on our formal board. We actually also had an associate directors that were probably about another 5, which were not voting members of our board, but they were some of the next generations in our company, and a few other interested parties that we felt like would be good to have in our meetings. But our formal board was 9 people. And I by design as the CEO, I like to have it where there were only 4 company executives or family members that were on our board. And I did this for a reason. That way, we were the minority in terms of voting power. And I always felt this way, that if I had an idea and it was such a mediocre idea that I couldn't sway one other person of our outside directors to vote for it, then it probably wasn't a real great thing to do. And it probably needed to be, if nothing else, pulled back, finessed a little bit, repositioned, get some more feedback before I reintroduced it to the board. And that rarely happened, but every once in a while it did. And our board members would push back a little bit, not militant, but just push back a little bit and say, you know, you really ought to think about this and think about some different strategies that might work in lieu of maybe going down this road. And we always felt like our board was a very vital part of our business. I loved having that level of accountability for me as a CEO, for our executive team. We had to come in and be answerable every month and show them what we were doing and what types of things we were doing to move the company forward. Also on our 9-person board, we always had about 3 of our directors that were women. We had a large farm operation that was headed up by a woman that They were large customers of ours. And then we had our senior VP and CFO, which was my sister-in-law. And then we had another woman that was an executive of a company that, and we always felt like having women on our board was a huge plus for us, because many of the farm operations, if the woman wasn't the CEO of the operation, in most cases, they were the chief financial officer of the organization. And so we understood the importance that they had in their operations and the power that they had in their operations. And having women on our board of directors really helped us keep that voice at the table, if you will, at any given time. And so our outside directors, we had one that was a lawyer, we had one that was a CPA, we had one that ran a very large road construction company, Wildcat Construction, here in Wichita. And he enjoyed sitting on our board because he learned a lot from our company that was applicable to his environment, and vice versa for us. So we had a very, very good, very professional board of directors. We met monthly. We did provide directors insurance for our board of directors as well, since they could possibly incur some liabilities, but it just worked extremely well, even up to the sale of our business. They were very integrally involved and helped us think through different strategies in the sale of our business, which went very well and was very successful. Okay, for chapter 12, just a couple things on that, implementing strategy throughout the organization. One of the trickiest parts for any business is, how do you implement strategy? How do you deploy strategy throughout the organization? And this is really where the disconnect is for a lot of companies. They have great strategies, they spend a lot of time thinking them through, but they just don't do a very good job deploying it through the organizations. There are a lot of great tools for deploying strategy. You know, honestly, probably none better and simpler than Microsoft Outlook. We use Microsoft Outlook a lot. It's date driven. You can keep notes on different strategies that you're doing, and you don't have to get overly complicated. Microsoft Outlook has wonderful tools. We kept our strategic plan on Microsoft Outlook quite a bit of the time. There are other tools that we utilized. One was called Hoshin Planning, which is a total quality management tool. And so there, you can get as sophisticated as you want, but you can also do it fairly simply. I would challenge anybody to think about using Microsoft Outlook as your strategic management tool. It can be done, and it can be done very effectively, and it's a simple way to do it. And then for those that need more sophistication, there's many other tools that you can utilize as well. But the main thing is to have a systematic approach to your strategy and your strategic management processes. One of the things we did from our board level to our management level to our department management level is our strategy and our strategic management plan was the grid work for all of our management and our board meetings. We use that as the grid work to structure our all of our meetings, and we also use that as a grid work to make sure that we had alignment from our board strategies to our management strategies to our department level strategies and our store level strategies. And we always felt like that was pretty effective in keeping us aligned and keeping us moving forward in the same directions. So anyway, just a little bit to think about on that front. Again, that kind of covers it for what I wanted to talk about today. I am available, again, by email, or if you need to pick up the phone, call me, that's fine too. But if you have any questions on your final paper, be sure and reach out to me. Those are due by this Sunday. And so the class ends as of this Sunday. If you think for any reason you're not going to be able to hit that target, and the date is on the syllabus on that, it would be Sunday, August 16th. If you think for some reason you're not going to be able to hit that target date, be sure and reach out to me earlier than later, and we'll figure out what we need to do there. Okay. I know a lot of people have a lot of plates spinning, and we've got a lot of things going with the external environment right now. So reach out if you have any issues or any problems that I can help you with. All right. Well, I enjoyed post this week, and I look forward to answering any questions. I very much enjoyed this class. It's been a wonderful couple of groups. I've been working with two different cohorts, the Spirit and the regular MBA program. I've enjoyed working with both cohorts on this, and I've been impressed with the assignments, the writing skills. The discussion boards have been great. Really appreciated all the efforts, and be sure and reach out if I can be of service going forward. Thank you, and I'll look forward to hearing from you if you need any help. Thanks.